Sanibona, ngaphambi singene kwivideo namuhla, ngithi angithathe lethuba ngibonge isupport nothando enikhombise lona lingaphezulu kokucabanga kwethu. Siyacela niqhubeke nisisupport njalo ngokubuka amavideo ethu, ungakhohlwa ukukhomenta, ushare, ulike. Siyafisa ukuzwa umbono wakho. Sicela ke singene kwivideo namuhla.
Ey'nsukwini ezedlule, uPresident Cyril Ramaphosa uxoshe uMinister we-Higher Education and Training okuDr. Nobuhle Nkabane, wayesebeka uMinister omusha kubude Manamela. Sizokhuluma-ke ngalo ndaba oba uSihle Lonzi umuphi imessage lapho ebaluleke kakhulu okufanele siyazi ukuze sizokwazi ukuyibukela kahle eduze indaba ya-Higher Education and Training. Bengithi ngizokwenza ngoba kunenye whistleblower futhi ekhulume ngayo le department, kodwa ngiyabona ukuthi uma ngase ngifake whistleblower izongithathela isikhathi esiningi. Ngizokhuluma ke ngalo lo daba nje lika Sihle Lonzi, le whistleblower solenzela ivideo yalo. Okunye ngifisa ukuphawula kukho noma ngingalandelelanga kahle udaba lolu oluvelile ukuthi i-USA plan ukufaka ama sanctions kubaholi abathize be-ANC not South Africa yonke. So angifuni ukungena ngixile kulelo daba, kodwa yonke lonto le yenzekala imsebenzi Afriforum. Zwana la.
You are basically asking Donald Trump to target ANC leaders. What does that mean for our country? Because this is the leaders of our country you're talking about.
Yes, it means when you push through destructive policies that are going to harm South Africa and regular South Africans, you should face consequences for it. We want the international role players to target with sanctions South African politicians that push through evil and destructive policies, not to punish the citizens of this country. And that has always been Afriforum's stance. As I said, we have the receipts to prove it. You can go through all of our stances on this issue over the years. It's always been punish the politicians that are seeking to push through policy for their own personal agenda and their party's own agenda rather than for the good of the country, and that will bring about the change that's necessary in South Africa.
Njengobuzwa ukuthi Afriforum lento ayilo ikhuluma lana babekhuluma nabezindaba ngoFebruary wakulonyaka. So uMahlengi Bhengu uyini konje uMahlengi lapho uspokesperson we-ANC bambuzile kabezindaba owaphawula ngalolu daba. Ngizomcaphuna naye siza ukuthi ngokwesayidi le-ANC bathini bona ngazo zonke lezi zinto ezenzakalayo, yini abaplan ukuyenza njoba nje isimo sinje. Ngicela ke uzwe la.
You know, I've been struggling with responding to this question about worry in the past 2 days. Precisely because we are here dealing with a threat to national sovereignty that should be of concern and should be seriously noted. And I think the response from the side of the ANC would be that we are seriously noting the developments in the USA, and this, of course, not being the first. There has been a spate of things that even provoked the president seeking a conversation with President Trump. And we all know how that went. And so back to your question, it is less about worry, but more about let the world see things for what they are and for who they are in this context. There can be no justification whatsoever for a government, a country taking a decision to impose sanctions on the leaders of the African National Congress. Whatever you may think or say about the ANC still remains that liberation movement that led the freedom struggle to emancipate the people, working with the people of South Africa to emancipate them. And the next struggle is to ensure that there's full economic emancipation. Yeah. The ANC has always stood on the side of those that are oppressed elsewhere in the world. I talk here about Western Sahara, the Sahrawi people. I talk here about the campaigns, ceaseless campaigns to call for the lifting of the economic and other embargoes against Cuba by the same United States. I'm talking here about the genocide in Gaza that is perpetuated by the apartheid state of Israel that is strongly allied to the United States. And so if you were to trace the track record, performance record of the African National Congress, in as far as promoting that injunction in the Freedom Charter, whose 70 years anniversary we're celebrating, there shall be peace and friendship. And I would add, and solidarity.
Yeah.
We've remained true to that particular injunction.
And the U.S. doesn't seem to be happy. I mean, speaking of friendship, doesn't seem to be happy with some of the relationships this government has with other countries. I mean, this bill directs the U.S. government to reevaluate diplomatic, trade, and military ties with South Africa, and they're citing the engagement South Africa has had with global powers like Russia, China, and they're mentioning Iran as well. As the ANC, does this make you change your position about the relations you have with these countries? Because what's surprising here is that the US can sit down and talk to Russia, they can sit down and talk to China, but we can't.
It's a case of a serious hypocrisy. It's a case of double standards. And I don't use those words lightly. They're quite measured, in fact, because I think it is worse than that. Have a look at the transactional relationship that President Trump has been having with countries since he assumed his current tenure. Have a look at the fact that South Africa has never made it unknown that we stand for multilateralism. We stand for a world where the playing fields are leveled in favor of poorer countries, countries in the global south that continue to try and recover from the ravages of colonialism. We've never been shied away from mentioning all of those things. We've never shied away from our leading role in the BRICS community of nations. We've never shied away from our position on the issue of Palestine. Hence, as a small country on the southern tip of Africa, took the matter to the International Court of Justice, a totally unprecedented step, and managed to do that because we believed in the moral high ground of that particular position, and also to be true to the expectations of our forebears. And so I do believe that all opinion makers and media individuals and colleagues, such as in your role, Clemens, really ought to be finding out from some of your colleagues, your peers, your opinion makers in the US, also about what are their stances, because the voices are very muted even in the US, but we are comforted in the fact that we continue to engage with some of our historic allies in the anti-apartheid movement.
Ngoba lolu daba kulona udaba engililandelele kakhulu, ngibona ukuthi kungcono ngicaphune yena uMahlengi uze ukuthi bathini bona. Ziningi izinto ezikhulunywe, kodwa ke into esuke ikhulunywa uyekha phezulu njengami angithandi ukuphawula ngayo. Angithandi ukuphawula ngayo, yingakho kunzima nakimi ukuthi ngikubeke ukuthi nakho kwenzekayo. Kodwa nje ngoba indaba ezikhona manje into izwayo ungakayenzi research uthola ukuthi kahle kahle kubangwa yini. Kodwa ngizwile lona lokusangishina ama leaders we-ANC, not wonke umuntu, ngikuzwile lokho. Yingakho ke ngikhumbule le video Afriforum, ngase ngikhumbula ukuthi abanikazi balomlilo kahle kahle abanikazi balendaba iAfriforum. Ngakho ke kufanele ngibacaphune uzokuthi bathi sizomcaphuna kokugcina uMahlengi bese siyadlula ngoba sisiphikelele kakhulu kuMinister we-Higher Education and Training ngoba naye uDr Nobuhle Nkabane uziphendulele emveni bese exoshiwe. Ngifisa ukumcaphuna naye uzokuthi utheni bese siyayivala le video ngoba angifisi le video beyinde kakhulu.
Well, I'd like to defer on that to government so that we also avoid the whole thing about the conflation of party and state. But I do wish to say that it is my belief, it is our belief as the ANC, that the Department of International Relations and Cooperation is hard at work, working with counterparts at trade, industry, and competition, including these matters that are being ventilated by President Trump in public. And yet there are negotiating teams that are working, as we know, And that is just a fact. Secondly, I do agree with you, though, that the ANC, together with other progressive formations in our country, must be intentional about confronting the right-wing extremism that we are seeing in our country that is now landed or is reinforced by its association, a newfound relationship with the United States of America. And if South Africans think these sanctions and this bill, proposed bill by Ronnie Jackson, whose record, by the way, is a record of right-wing extremism. And I don't know, when I read up on the analysis, I don't get a sense that even our own opinion makers are having a sense of history where the individual is concerned and those that support that very right-wing discourse that he is pushing, including utilizing parliamentary processes in the US Congress. But the reality of it is that where I agree with you is that there is going to be a need as part of the national dialogue conversation and many other conversations, including our diplomatic strategy towards the US. I'm certain that the president is sitting down with a team around the table to say, how do we respond in a typical South African fashion, though, measured manner, calm, matured, because we cannot afford to behave in the same way as our detractors seeking us to go into the level to which they wanting us to go to. We've got to look at the interest of the entire geopolitical environment. We've got to ensure that we don't get bullied, as the president has rightly said, because if we allow that, and part of what Comrade Ibrahim Rasool highlighted, we need to make sure that we continue to be steadfast in that same tone of Nelson Mandela, that you are not going to dictate to us who our friends should be.
Uzizweleke nawe uma hle ngubekile sizolandela kodaba lwakhona kodwa nje ngithe angele highlight ngoba udaba olukhona olukhulunywayo futhi ngalo kodwa angizukuphawula kakhulu. Ziningi izinto ezikhulunyiwe lapha, ziningi izinto ezikhulunywayo ngoba kuthinta ngisho ubudlelwane South Africa nabo neRussia kanye neChina. Zonke lezo zinto lezo icala South Africa elivulile ICJ International Court. Kodwa ke mangathola ithuba kahle ngelibheka udaba lakhona ngiyokhuluma into ephelele kwamanje nje bengikwazisa ukuthi bathina beANC. Kukhona ivideo engiyibonile la engifisa ukuthi sidlule kuyo.
2 months ago, a whole president of an African country was invited to the United States for a meeting that was supposed to censor specifically on trade. There was a peripheral issue about whether or not there was white genocide in South Africa. President Ramaphosa and his team, they left South Africa feeling like they were Tsuros. They thought they had their game together. But what they didn't know was when they got to the United States, they found a smarter Tsuro. So before they could even discuss the issue of trade, which was the main reason for their visit, suddenly lights out. Television on, showtime. Mr. President, you see all these crosses? These are white farmers who've been killed by black people. What do you have to say to that? President Ramaphosa, instead of looking at this picture that clearly looks like crosses along the highway, he should have said, Mr. President, we don't build grave sites along highways where I come from. I can tell you that that is not a grave site in my country. So whoever gave it to you, they lied to you, Mr. President. Well, what did the president do? Let me see. I'll have to look into that. Round 1, defeated. Throws another one. Mr. President, these are white South Africans in body bags after they have been killed by black people in your country. What do you have to say to that? Instead of his people who were traveling with him, AI, you simply have to ask AI, where was this picture taken? In seconds, AI can tell you where that picture was taken. His people did nothing. They left the president hanging. Once again, he found himself trying to figure out, where are those pictures? I've never seen that. Mr. President, you mean to tell me these pictures are in your country and you do not know? President Ramaphosa should have known. If there were white people who had been slaughtered by black people and were being carried in body bags, there is no way he would not have known. But instead of saying categorically, that is not my country, because I know what happens in my country, he said, well, I just will have to look into that. So he thought, you know what? Let me turn this over to my white Minister of Agriculture. Maybe he can explain that there is no genocide, white genocide in South Africa. What does the white Minister of Agriculture say? Oh, yes, Mr. President, we have a problem. We need help. Round 3, US again. I could go on and analyze what happened.
Dlula kule video ngoba ngifisa ukukuvezela ukuthi upresident wethu uzehlisa isithunzi kangakanani nanokuthi abanye aba leaders wamazwe ambuka njengopresident ohlulekile ukuziphendulela akhulumela izwe lakhe aliphethe lase South Africa. Ebhlungu ke lento ukubona izwe lakho seliyinhlekisa neleader yakho isiyinhlekisa kodwa ingeke into ozoyenza ngoba vele abamqambeli amanga unje. Yabona nje ngiyakhumbula besho lapha e-USA bathi no asibulala abantu there are no white genocide in South Africa, sibabulala abamhlophe kodwa sibulala wonke umuntu, sinenkinga ye-crime, sibulala wonke umuntu. Suka la uyosho lonto leyo le emazweni ukuthi nibulala wonke umuntu. Asidluleke la singene kule video engifisa siqale ngayo la ka Dr. Nobuhle Nkabane uze ukuthi yena utheni.
I did receive it through the call. Mr. President called me yesterday when I was on my way to Cape Town. Hence, I was supposed to appear before the Portfolio Committee this morning.
Were you shocked by your exit?
Do you know, all signs were there that there are some forces on the ground that want me out of the system. To be honest, I'm not even shocked. And I just accept the dismissal because the president, in terms of constitutional prerogative and powers and functions, when you look at section 91.2, he has a right to appoint and also to dismiss the deputy president, the ministers, as well as deputy ministers. So I accept the dismissal by the president, and I take it positively, and I feel I have been honored to be entrusted with such a huge responsibility to lead the Department of Higher Education and Training, the post-school education and training system entirely, and I think I'm a better version of myself than I came. I've learned a lot of things. But what is very disturbing that I think I must as well speak about is that there is a perception that I lied in Parliament. I was looking forward for this day so that I clear my name. I prepared nicely, files, appointment letters, everything to prove myself that I did not lie in Parliament. I am a professional. I am an academic. There is no way I can risk my reputation by lying in Parliament. I wanted to go to Parliament and clear my name today, having all the evidence that I did follow due processes to make sure that systems are in place. But when the dust has settled, I will then get an opportunity to clear my name.
Bona akekho umuntu oyinkinga engimazi empilweni yami njengomuntu ongakwazi ukubona iphutha. Nomuntu ongakwazi ukuzibona iphutha. Akekho umuntu oyinkinga njengaloyo. Yazi indaba yomuntu ovuma yathi hayi kube nephutha. Ngiyaxolisa udaba lakhe liyakhulumeka. Asizona ingane thina nje asizona ingane. Siyayibukela futhi ama-portfolio committee. Sibabonile abantu athi waba appoint ukuthi babe besho bonke ukuthi there was no meeting eke yabakhona nje yabo as ipanel. So uminister izathu sakhe sokuthi azaphike akhuluma into eningangaka yena afuna nje ukuthi kwenzeke iphutha adlula abantu base South Africa bayashesha ukukhohlwa ningakho le drama enzeka la South Africa. Sebekhohliwe ukuthi kwenzakalani last week bakhuluma ngokwenzeke namuhla. So yena bekufuneka nje azibone iphutha adlula akho ma forces alwa naye wayangalwi nabo bonke ominister abakhona besakhetha yena yedwa ingoba yena enjani. So akekho umuntu oyinkinga njengomuntu ongakwazi ukuzibona iphutha. Akekho umuntu oyinkinga nje ukuthi umesolwa noma ebona. Yazi kungcono ukusolwa na uphendula ube kuhlangothi lwakho. Kodwa la ubona khona ukuthi alana ngibanjiwe. Funeka nje uvume ukuthi cha wonile. Kodwa kangimangala ufanele ukuba nje uphuma ku-ANC. Uphuma ku-ANC. ANC ke bayakwazi ukuqambela amanga. Bekubuka ngqo emehlweni baqambela amanga. ANC bayakwazi ukuphika into abade beyisho izolo. President Ramaphosa wathi uzokwakha izindlu ezu-1 million akhela abantu base-Alex. Waphika umbalula wazwama ngonyawo lodwa athi lezi ndlu lezi ayishongo ukuthi zi-1 million mhlambe zi-1,000. Waphika noma sine video la asho khona kodwa yena uyaphika ukuthi hayi azangasho. So awumangala uminister amayiphika kanje. Ngiyacabanga ukuthi lapha ku-ANC kunesikole ngiyasola mhlambe kune training la utrainwa khona ukuthi kufanele uphike noma ubanjiwe. Uphike noma ubanjiwe uphike udaba engesiyimi. Phike. Into ye-ANC ke le yokuphika noqamba amanga thatha ibribe. Ngicabanga lento ezoyi3 ezinye zama requirements ezifunakalayo uma ngabe uyimember ye-ANC kufanele kube nazo. Ukuphika, ukuqamba amanga nokuthatha ibribe. Funeka lezi zinto lezi ukwazi ukuzenza kangcono. Angidluleke. Angisho ukuthi mina angikhulumi ngominister ngirefera nje ku-ANC nama cadres wakhona uma ngikhuluma ngokuthatha ibribe nokuqamba amanga nokuphika. Uminister ke yena ungena kule category yokuphika hayi unekhono. Unekhono uminister lokuphika. Phika into noma sesiyibona. Ya ngiyacabanga ukuthi amanye ama requirements assessment mhlambe mawuzothathwa lapha ku-ANC uyabheka ukuthi uyakwazi na ukwenza lezi zinto ezu3 ngoba ngisho president hayi unalo ikhono lokuphika. President ukwazi ke nokupretend engathi into akayazi. Ngathuka mina ezimangazi enze sengathi akazi ukuthi eJohannesburg konakele kunjeya. Kunanama pothole ama street lights awasebenzi. Wamangala kwasengathi uqala ukuyibona. Lo president uhlala kulephi? So into yakhona nje ku-ANC mawungakwazi ukuphika noqamba amanga awufithi kahle awumithi ama minimum requirements yakhona. Asidluleke sizwe ukuthi utheni uSihle Lonzi.
President and Commander-in-Chief of the EFF, Chair of Chairs. Today we're not here to beat our chests or blow our horns. The EFF rises to remind the people of South Africa that doing the work that we're elected to do is a duty, not an achievement. Members of Parliament should not be over-celebrated for doing the simple work of Parliament. There is nothing special about what we're doing. We're simply doing what the people voted for us to do. Just as doctors treat their patients, firefighters fight fire, engineers build infrastructure, and teachers educate, so too should politicians serve without expecting standing ovations and over-celebration. Representing the people of South Africa is not a favor, it is a duty and a constitutional obligation. If we are serious about restoring the faith of our democracy, then hard work, honesty and integrity must be the norm, not the exception. Minister Putimanamela, we rise today to issue a clear and firm warning as we did with your predecessor. You are now at a crossroads. It's either you are going to be a loyal servant and sacrificial lamb of the corrupt comrades of the ANC and the South African Communist Party, or you are going to stand with the people of South Africa. As you enter office, you still have a chance to join us as we confront the deepening crisis in higher education. I read your article on the Daily Maverick a few weeks ago when you were still auditioning to be minister. Fortunately, we align on key aspects. The clearing of student debt, which is a bill which is championed by the EFF, rooting out corruption in the SETAs and the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, and the elevation of the TVET sector. This is your moment to lead, not on behalf of your party, but on behalf of the nation. We said to the former minister, always side with the truth, not a faction of the political party. If you put your hands in the cookie jar, if you steal from the people of South Africa, we can tell you now you are not going to finish your term as minister. And if you doubt that, ask those who came before you. We will always fight corruption We will always fight for the students of South Africa. We will always fight for the youth of this country. You have a responsibility to join us in the fight or follow in the footsteps of your predecessor. Be a minister of the people, not a minister of the ANC, not a minister of the South African Communist Party. The people of South Africa are watching you. And if you continue in the footsteps of your predecessor, even the predecessor of your predecessor, I repeat, Mr. Manamela, you are not going to finish your term as Minister of Higher Education and Training. And all those who are going to be clapping hands for you, telling you to deploy ANC comrades in the CETAs, telling you to deploy ANC comrades in NSFAS, telling you to collapse our TVET sector, are not going to be there when you are removed as Minister of Higher Education and Training. Join us, Minister, as we fight against the crisis in higher education and training. The EFF rejects this budget forward. Thank you.
Na message ke lena ethunyelwa Sihle Lonzi ku minister ukuthi akeze lapha ya ngeinhloso zokuzosebenza kwi department kulekeleleka abafundi ama citizens umsebenzi wawo umenza njalo akeze kuba nankinga futhi kuzosetshenziswana kahle bavele kugcineni kosuku funa kusetshenziswane kahle ukuze abantu base South Africa bezokwazi ukuthola idingo zabo kodwa umeza nomqondo lo waku ANC uzodibana nenkinga lento ehlele laba abangominister abebekhona izomehlela naye iwona ingenhle kabi le ngoba imxwayisa ngento ayibonayo nayazi ayimtsheli ngento ekude naye cha imtshela nje ukuthi uma uphambana nalokho ofanele ukwenze bese ufuna ukuqhubeka necorruption kodwa ke ngathi kwi speech sakhe njoba desho ukuthi ufundile into ayibhalile ku Daily Maverick ubhale kahle kakhulu nento afuna ukuzenza ukukhombisa ukuthi umuntu ofisa ukuseva abantu base South Africa. Ngicela ukuma ke siyibambe le video la. Bengithi nje angilethele le indaba ezimbili. Mina nawe sidibane kwi video elandelayo. Ngiyabonga.